Hey, where'd my car go? Hopefully I'll find out this week on Motoring 2006.
TSN's Motoring 2006 is brought to you by the new Q from Quaker State. Unleash all your horses.
You know, most of us have that one vehicle we'd love to buy, and most of us will buy that vehicle when either we save enough money or we get good credit at the bank. Now, I say most of us because there are other people who, when they want a car, they simply steal it. And 30 years ago in this country, they stole about 40,000 vehicles per year. Now, in 2003, the latest data we have, that figure rose to 171,000, or an average of about 480 vehicles per day. Now, the bad news is auto theft is increasing every year. The good news is more vehicles are being recovered for many reasons. But this week, we're going to check out a business called Boomerang. And like a boomerang, these folks hope that it will come back. Your vehicle, that is.
As soon as we find the tracking or the vehicle, what we'll do is we'll call the police. Boomerang is a Canadian company. It was started 10 years ago by a young gentleman named Andre Boulet, who was 22 at the time, and he had this great idea to get stolen vehicles back. And the device is hidden in your vehicle, and it uses cellular technology, so that's a little bit different than GPS in that it's really focused on stolen vehicle recovery. The advantage of using cellular is you're able to get the vehicle back if for any reason it's in a container about to get shipped overseas, or even if it's downstairs in a parked garage 4 or 5 levels deep, we're able to actually get that signal back. There's over 1,000 cars are stolen every month in Toronto alone, so it's an epidemic right now. It's a big problem, and it's growing. It's actually growing by 6% last year, so it's a problem that's getting worse, not better. One of the number one ways that vehicles are stolen is just people leaving their cars running, and they're going into getting milk, or they're doing something, and someone just walks in, as is happening right now, drives away with your car, and it's gone. And so that's why you need to have a Boomerang system installed. And I think now is probably a good time for us to give you a demonstration. So what we've done is we've given the Hummer a 15-minute head start, and now what we're going to do is we're going to go and do a demonstration track, and hopefully we'll be able to find it. So how the Boomerang system works is our trackers are always in communication with our call center in Montreal, and as soon as the call center is notified that the Boomerang, that there's been a stolen vehicle, the call center is able to basically determine it with about a 1.5 km radius of where that vehicle is.
611, perfect.
So what happens now is our trackers go immediately to that vicinity of where they've been told to go from the command center. And then what Mike will do is he'll actually switch over technology and start using a more sensitive equipment, which will allow him to be able to get to 5 inches of the vehicle. Last week's tracking story is we had a Jetta that was reported stolen to us. So what happens is we get that out of our command center. The command center gave us a rough course location.
We located it in the north end of Toronto approximately 45 minutes later and notified police. And the major crime unit came out, executed a search warrant later on in the day.
The gentleman was later on arrested, and inside they found, I think, 3 Jettas as well as parts from 7 other cars actually altogether.
We're in the area of the cell tower coverage, so now we're trying to find our truck.
You'll see the signal strength, and then that's the location to tell us to go straight, turn left or right. So we're getting close here. As you can see, the signal strength start to increase, as well as the needle, the way that it's reacting. And there she is.
Busted.
Busted.
You got me.
We got you. That's good. There's a good hiding spot.
That's a little cringe.
Yeah.
Normally we'd have you in handcuffs about now, but we'll be nice today.
You got the munchies? Don't drive. I'll tell you why later on Kenzie's Corner.
Kia advertises itself as the fastest growing car company in the world. This week on Test Drive, we take a look at the fastest growing minivan in the world as we take a look at the all-new second generation Sedona. The first thing you notice is just how similar the outgoing minivan and the new Sedona are. However, looks can be deceiving as there is not a single shared panel between the two. The reason for the new metal is to accommodate the larger dimensions. Overall length climbs by 200mm while the wheelbase has been stretched by 130. The net result is a 15% increase in interior volume, making the new Sedona one of the largest minivans available. You know, around at the back, this Sedona's been well thought through and you get a ton of stuff. First of all, a much needed rear wiper and a backup assist. Now this thing starts to beep as you close in an obstacle. The reason you need it, quite simple. From here to the driver's seat is a long way and the sight lines aren't that good. Again, gaining access, as with the side doors, the tailgate's powered on this EX model. You get a ton of space with the seats up, primarily because you've got the well that the seats fold down into. When they are folded away, well, you open up an acre of space. It really has been well thought through. For the record, the Sedona will swallow a maximum cargo volume of 141.5 cubic feet. The drawback being that the middle seats must be removed and not folded into the floor to gain access to this volume. The new van also takes safety to heart. The EX model tested includes active headrests, side and curtain airbags, electronic stability and traction control systems, as well as anti-lock brakes. Now the latter provide reassuring stops that measure 40 meters from 100 kilometers an hour. You know, in spite of the new Kia's size, there is one drawback, and it's right here in the middle row. Now, unfortunately, there's more headroom in the back than there is in the middle. If I sit upright, well, this big dome that's needed to accommodate the sunroof and the ducting for these overhead vents, it leaves you very little headroom. I would be uncomfortable on a long trip. Power comes from an all-new engine that is remarkably refined. Unlike the rather thrashy lump of old, the new 3.5-litre V6 goes about putting its 244 horsepower and 253 pound-feet of torque to the pavement in a very civilised manner. It also delivers a strong turn of speed. Getting from rest to 100k takes 8.5 seconds, while the passing move is accomplished in a quick 6.8 seconds. Obviously, the elevated power levels help, but so does the 5-speed automatic that now features a manual mode. Adding that extra gear means there's now a ratio for just about every eventuality. You know, when you slip behind the wheel of this new Sedona, you get a very pleasant surprise. Where the previous van was notable for its cheap plastics and not very well equipped, this thing is top notch. Along with a full suite of power items, you get full leather, heated front seats, a very nice radio, dual zone climate controls. It runs the whole gamut up to and including power adjustable pedals. The beauty of that feature? Well, this van will accommodate anybody of just about any stature, meaning you don't have to sit too close to the airbag. Riding on struts at all four corners, the new Sedona brings a balanced blend of ride and handling. On the one hand, the ride is very comfortable and easily as good as anything in the class. On the other, it does a good job of eliminating excess body roll. True, it's not too difficult to find, and few will be moved to push it through the pylons as I was daft enough to do, but when attacking a faster on-ramp, the Sedona does not disappoint. The rework of this Sedona has been very well done indeed. Now, there are a few that are going to complain about its size. My wife said it was a bit too bus-like. However, if you do need to carry 5 or 6 people on a regular basis, this new Kia Sedona represents a very affordable alternative to the usual suspects.
It's a 1962 Sabra. It's made in Israel. There was 110 made originally. There's only about 54 that we know of right now in existence. It won some sports car Grand Prix in France, Belgium, and Ireland, and actually raced this type of car, raced against the great Carroll Shelby, and caused him to go home and build the Shelby Cobras. And they were beating him, and he was a little upset. So it's quite a unique history in this little car. The engine in this one is a Toyota 1600. They used to come with a Ford 1700 console engine, which in competition form put about 130 horsepower out, which is quite phenomenal for 1700 cc's. They had a ZF standard transmission in it and 4-link suspension in the back. This one has actually got a 5-speed with the 1600 cc Toyota engine, and it's quite tractable and very fast for 4 cylinders. They built this in 1961 to 64, and there was probably because of the being made in Israel and partly made in Britain, and they were putting the two cars pieces here and pieces there. So just the logistics, I think, of the two continents trying to put them together. My daughter, when she was 16, said she wanted a sports car. We found this in Camrose, Alberta. It wasn't drivable at the time. We spent about a year putting it together, getting it ready for her, and she's been driving it since she was 17, and that was in about 5-6 years ago now. But she actually drives it with the top off all summers, rain or shine. It's an open car. She says it's got to go topless.
Ladies and gentlemen, the all-new 2007 Chrysler Aspen.
The original track was built in the 20s, early 20s, and Formula One had been racing here for many years. This Track Grand Prix of Germany here at the Nürburgring has also a long tradition. It started about 15 years ago, and it's certainly the highlight of the race season here of the European Truck Race Championship. This isn't grassroots racing. They have the body of a truck, but these are serious race cars, and so are the drivers. I mean, these are not just people who park their truck in front of the racetrack and come in and race their racetrack. These are professional race drivers.
The trucks are Super A and Super B class trucks, only slight differences between the two run groups. They do run together. They have 12-liter displacement engines. Typically the two trucks running in the series right now are MAN and Mercedes-Benz, and they're putting out about 1,000 horsepower or better, and running to a top speed of 100 miles an hour that's electronically limited.
It's my understanding is even bigger than Formula One. Last year, some 240,000 people gathered here for the weekend for this truck racing. So it's great. I'm from Sweden myself, and it took me 1,000 kilometers to get here.
The transmission which we supplied to the series is a spec transmission for all the trucks in the series. It's a ZF automatic transmission for city bus application, and it's taken off the assembly line and modified for the truck series, but it is basically a spec transmission. The transmission actually is programmed to operate like a sequential gearbox, and so the driver has the option of running fully automatic, or he can actually change over to a manual setting that will allow him to move the shift lever forward and back, upshift and downshift in a sequential-like fashion. So as soon as he hits the shifter, the truck will upshift or downshift.
Big boys and big toys, this is, isn't it? They don't come bigger than this for racing. It's a challenge, but also a lot of people that are involved in the transport industry also come to the race meetings, and so it gives sponsors an ideal platform for their products. It started out with a standard tractor unit that was a road-going vehicle, but nowadays we've got like Formula One. What you see behind here, it's a works engine, it's got a special CAD designed chassis unit. It still looks like a standard Mercedes, Tego road-going truck, but that's about it. Everything else is special.
From a rolling start of about 30 kilometers an hour, they'll reach 160k in about 3 to 4 seconds. So all the trucks are very close. They run road circuits, and the road circuits enable the drivers to really excel. You've got braking, turning into corners, diving into corners. They really try and push each other out of the way to get to the front of the pack. So watching 10,000-pound trucks from 100 miles an hour dive into corners and try and pick up positions is pretty exciting racing.
People say, why race trucks? But then why race horses? Why race dogs? Why race touring cars? They weren't designed for that. And trucks are a vehicle. You can tell by the people that come to watch them. They're fascinating to watch. That's why so many thousand people come here to the Nürburgring and throughout Europe. And it's just great. It's very exciting. It's the sort of the buzz of being involved with it, because all the people are allowed around the trucks, and I guess a lot of these people here are all involved in the trucking industry, which is massive in Europe, so they get a chance to be attached to it, and it's a fascination factor, I guess, really, and gives me a job.
Braking is a crucial point, so that's where the losers are separated from the winners, who can brake themselves at the very last minute to overtake the other guys.
The brakes are water cooled, so there are injectors that actually spray water onto the brakes every time they're applied. If they didn't water cool the brakes would overheat to the point where you would lose total braking in about a lap.
If you would forgot to cool the discs, you could come up to 920 degrees, and this temperature is unbelievable, and that's why we are always trying to keep the temperatures down by 400, 450, 500 degrees.
Water's kept in big tanks, pressurized tanks that are on board the trucks. They'll run about 250 liters of water through a truck in one race.
Nobody really thought about this event growing that big here, and it amazes everybody, and you see the support from the industry. I mean, this is a huge marketing platform for everybody, and it has been growing over the years.
I think it would be very good for North America. I would like to come over and probably compete in that series. It could be the start of what could be a World Series.
Earlier in the program we were talking about auto theft and how it's increasing each year. Well, here's a couple of stats for you. The most likely vehicle to be stolen in this country is the Subaru WRX, and the least likely, and maybe it's kind of a backhanded compliment, is the Buick LeSabre. All right, let's head to the Quaker State Garage and join Bill Gardner.
Brad, engineers are always trying to wring that last bit of performance and that last bit of fuel economy out of their vehicles. There's lots of progress, lots of technology going into engines and into transmissions as well. This week I want to talk about transmissions, some interesting things we've noticed. Last year, for example, Toyota on their Tundra pickup came out with a 5-speed automatic. Our long-term tester Dakota right here has a 5-speed automatic as well, and Dodge uses that transmission in the Ram pickups as well. Interesting thing about the Dodge 5-speed automatic that I've noticed is that the second gear in this transmission has actually 2 different ratios depending on vehicle load, vehicle speed, and throttle position. The computer that runs the engine and transmission in this vehicle can alternately select either a 1.50 to 1 ratio for second gear or 1.67 to 1 ratio for second gear, depending on vehicle load, vehicle speed, and throttle position. So there's some neat tricks going on in the powertrain on these vehicles. Now, also General Motors is coming out this year with a 6-speed Allison-built automatic for its heavy-duty pickups, and next year they'll have 2 different 6-speed automatics built by their turbo-hydromatic division of General Motors for their light-duty trucks. And it just goes to show you that as each year progresses, we're seeing more and more technology going into that powertrain to improve drivability, performance, and fuel economy. Till next week, I'm Bill Gardner for Motoring 2006.
We meet a lot of young people when doing this show, and some of them are telling us now that they grew up watching Motoring on TSN. In fact, some of you guys are of driving age, and we started the show before you were born. You know, it's gratifying to know that we've got such loyal viewers. It's a bit scary, but I have earned this gray hair. So this message I want to direct to you young people. Now, most of you have figured out drinking and driving is a stupid thing to do. I mean, you hear that all the time, don't drink and drive. But there appears to be a general feeling somehow that driving after smoking marijuana is somehow okay, because you don't hear that message, don't dope and drive. Well, we do talk about dopes who drive, but that's another story. But I'm here to tell you that marijuana does affect your ability to drive. It doesn't just make you want to giggle and munch on those Doritos. It affects your reflexes, and specifically, it affects your ability to judge the relative speed of vehicles. Now, if you're pulling onto a major highway from a side street, well, that can be deadly. Now, I don't want to get into this whole thing. I'm your dad, reefer madness, one puff on a joint's going to turn you into a heroin addict, although it might. But I do want you to remember, if you're going to toke up, get somebody else to do the driving. I'm Jim Kenzie.
Before we go, we just want to remind you that next week we're going to present our 1-hour Car of the Year special where we pick the best of the class of 2006. We want your input. So go to www.motoringtv.com or tsn.ca. We've got a poll. We've listed all our nominees. We want to hear who you pick for the best of 2006, and we'll have your winners and ours on the program. So make sure you don't miss that one as we continue to bring you more stories about cars and the people who drive them.
Just about the whole portfolio is brand new, and Solstice is one of the last vehicles coming to the portfolio. And I think it says a lot about what Pontiac is all about. And you know, we've seen here today how much fun it can be to drive the car.
TSN's Motoring 2006 has been brought to you by the new Q from Quaker State. Unleash all your horses.